The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good morning, everyone. We'll start in 2 minutes just to give the time to a bit more people to connect. So let's start. So my name is Léa Dehaute. I'm a corporate affairs advisor here at ENTSO-E. And I have with me Alban Joyot, who is a system adequacy senior advisor and who will present the Summer Outlook 2018. So to run you quickly through the agenda for today. So Alban will first present the results, then he will elaborate on one specific aspect, which is the level of hydro reservoirs. And then we will take a few questions. So you will be able to ask questions either orally by raising your hands. So if you look at the GoToWebinar tool, there is a button to just raise your hand and we will unmute you. Or you can send question in written form as you prefer. To just introduce briefly what is the Summer Outlook for those who may not be so familiar with it. So it is one of ENTSO-E's legal mandates. So we publish twice a year the Summer Outlook by 1st of June and a Winter Outlook by the 1st of December. And basically, we look at possible risks to security of supply for the coming season. So we look at the role of interconnections, we look at external factors such as consumer behavior and of course the weather. We do a sensitivity analysis and we also review the previous season, so the previous winter or summer to assess the previous outlook. I will now give the mic to Alban, who will guide you through the Summer Outlook 2018.
Thank you, Léa. Good morning. I'm Alban Joyot, in charge of adequacy at ENTSO-E. So adequacy looking from a couple of months ahead until 10 years ahead, so with different products, and that I will introduce briefly to you. So to give you the framework of different products, so we have the long term that are not adequacy product but planning. So the 10-year development plans, TYNDP, looking above 10 years ahead for investment decision on the grid infrastructure that are investment that needs generally 10 years or more, and also for any policy decisions. And then we have also looking midterm adequacy report, namely MAF, looking up to 10 years. This allows to support on the needs of generation for any midterm investment in generation or any market decisions in the coming years to prepare the near future. And then we have the short term based on both seasonal until week ahead. The seasonal outlook, so what we'll focus on today. Consider the already known maintenance schedule and available generation and demand side response, what is expected in the coming months. But the message of the report is also to highlight what if we consider this situation, there might be a need of maintenance optimization, adjustment or relocation, or specific additional measures in case there is a risk for the security of supply. So it's a more short-term decisions, an operational decision until the week ahead, which is operated by the regional security coordinators in narrow coordination with ENTSO-E. So we share the common general methodology, and we share also the bridge between these products. And this week ahead is for really operational countermeasures on decisions. So now let's focus on the seasonal outlook. So mainly the seasonal outlook performed twice a year for winter and summer. As Leah said, it's because it's the seasons that are the most risky when there is a risk. It's mainly in these two seasons, and we produce for each of them a dedicated report. So there are three main steps for that. The first one is to gather the data. So preparing these reports requires a lot of input data from more than 30 countries, so above 35 even. And TSOs are the one giving inputs for any specific accuracy of national data regarding different inputs like demand, generation, maintenance. And on the top of that, we have also pan-European coordination to bring consistent data, where we built together a pan-European climate database, which is gathering historical 34 years of temperatures, of wind load factor, photovoltaic load factors in all Europe perimeter at a regional granularity below the country level. And you have also a demand database, which is in implementation, still in improvement. We are also trying to have a consistent approach on the power on the force outage of the power station, even if there are some possibility to have specific values for the countries. And we have also, when possible, a use of the existing data, like in transparency platform, like for instance, generation capacity and maintenance. So this gives a lot of input data that are also checked for the details accuracy by the TSOs, and allows to prepare the next steps, which is the calculations. So yes, I forgot to mention the important interconnector input data, where we need for each between each country or even inside the country when available bidding zone, the available capacity of exchange on a weekly basis. So coming to the second box here, it's defining constraining scenarios and then the proper calculations. So here we focus in the current approach in a synchronous European peak, meaning the most constraining time in whole Europe, as considering Europe as a whole, which is calculated is 7 p.m. Because we consider the demand, but also the variable renewable like photovoltaic and wind in our estimation. Simply, this peak was, for instance, rather at 12 at midday a couple of years ago, and it's moved now to 7 p.m. because of a large amount of photovoltaic in parts of Europe, which make this 12 noon not a problem anymore as a risk of missing capacity, but sometimes even the opposite. And then we move to the evening average peak. However, we consider, and it's also indicated in the report, that the countries may have specific peaks that may not coincide with exactly 7 p.m. and that is also depicted in the report. And besides the peak, we have analysis of the opposite case with very low demand and high renewable variable wind and photovoltaic, which are basically, we take a very early Sunday night on a Sunday noon or Sunday 11, which corresponds to low demand and high winds for the Sunday 5 a.m. and high wind on photovoltaic for 11 a.m. For this constraining scenario, we take basically what we call the 1 in 10 scenario, 1 in 10 year, even if it's more probabilistic way, 1 in 10 occurrence risk. No, sorry, not the 1 in 10 was used until last summer, and now we took the 1 in 20, meaning we took a bit more conservative approach there. And after we displayed the results in all Europe, we focused on the weeks and also on the regions that are flagged with a risk. So mainly a risk if there is a lack of capacity available, capacity to supply for the demand. We focus with a probabilistic approach in this week and in these regions, using a large number of temperature, wind possibilities to estimate the probability of occurrence of such a risk, and then to try to identify the drivers of the risk and to propose some countermeasures. So we come to the next slide. Regarding the evolution of generation mix in Europe, we have, as we did it already in the past season outlook, we have updated this in the last year, last summer to this summer. On the right side, on the left side, you have even the summer before or the year before, to show the trend, which is confirmed. Mainly the increase. So there is a decrease of conventional thermal with an increase of renewable, mainly wind and solar. As in the previous year, what is to consider is that in this graph we can see that the increase is almost on the above part is almost equivalent to the decrease in installed capacity, so in gigawatt. It doesn't mean that it is self replacement, because you would have a conventional unit, thermal unit, that would run, let's say, 90% of the time, when a wind could run 30% of the time, or solar less than 15%, depending on the region. So you have for the same installed capacity less availability, and also you have a higher volatility, because it's changing depending on the climate conditions. Also, regarding the gas, we see that there is an increased trend for the 2 years, even if there was a light decrease in the past year. So let us focus on the outcomes from the seasonal outlook. So this year it depicts the countries and the regions in the rows and in the columns the weeks. At the previous years, green means no issue the country even exporting. Light blue means apparently. So 1 second, we might have a technical small problem.
Yeah, just 1 minute, please. We're just fixing one small technical issue so you can see our slides.
Okay, fine. Sorry, it was a pure technical problem solved. So this is the slide is the one, the right one. So as we see, there are some countries needed import for adequacy reasons that are the dark blue, and the country that would be prone to import according to a very simplified merit order approach are the light blue, and in green it's a country who are exporting at this week. So the situation is that there is no risk detected of any adequacy. There are countries that need to, or regions that need to import, but no risk is identified. As last summer, we had risk identified in Italy. We focused on Italy, which is split in 6 bidding zones, as on this map. So actually, the situation is much better than the expected situation is much better than last summer. And then we identify why this situation is much better. So there are 2 main reasons. The first is the increase of generation availability. So there are some conventional thermal power plants were reactivated as they were last summer in the mothballing status. Also, the maintenance of these power plants was optimized to fit with the weekly constraints. And secondly, there is a better estimation of the renewable generation. So the wind, the photovoltaic that are today due to bidding zone reanalysis that are more accurate at a local region, local part of Italy, as it was last summer, kind of a general value for all Italy. So this more accurate, the distribution was of the same amount of availability was in favor of the zone with a lack of generation. And secondly, there is also an improvement of the modeling of hydro, especially runoff river. So this has said that the situation expected in all Europe is the adequacy expected to be satisfied during the next summer. So just that for information, we performed for Italy this probabilistic approach as we did last year to be able to compare. We see that when the temperature is reaching 25 degrees, 20 or 27 degrees, there are quite a lot of needs for import. But especially in IT2, so the central part of Italy, IT2, IT3, means there is 100% risk almost of import, but there is enough capacity in the neighboring regions. So no deficit of resource is expected. It was focused on the most constraining week, which was the week 30. So now I propose to come to the hydro reservoir level. Basically, the data collection is started for this summer outlook already in end of February, March. So the data were updated later on, but there is a parallel run with the calculation. What was the status at the very beginning is that the level was very low in Central Europe in the Alps, and a bit low in Iberia and around average in the Nordics, but the situation has clearly improved, especially in Central Europe in the Alps regions, because of snow melting and very high, quite high level of snow reserve from last winter, from winter 2017-2018 in the Alps. So today the situation you can see it also on the transparency platform of ENTSO-E. The situation is quite it's quite average, and even in some countries above average. However, it has to be considered that we started before the snow melt. We started with a very low level, so no issue is expected for next summer, but we should monitor it and consider it what will come for the next season, for next winter. So regarding the future of the seasonal outlook, so we are permanently improving the approach, the methodology, and try to reply to stakeholders' needs. And particularly, there will be the future implementation of the clean energy package expected to enter into force maybe probably very early next year, and the risk preparedness part of it. It asks ENTSO-E to define methodology on seasonal outlook to week ahead, to day ahead adequacy. And we are already starting. We have a methodology that is the one we showed to you, but we want to improve it, and we are already in a path to have a more probabilistic approach. So it's the below box to prepare the future seasonal outlook with a more probabilistic modeling. Today we have a kind of weekly peak, and we have then a probabilistic analysis in case a risk are detected in 1 week in one region. Tomorrow we want to have an hourly calculation for each area, and doing even a probabilistic approach with multi-year type of Monte Carlo approach with multi-temperature years and also multi-outage possibilities. So for that we use a midterm adequacy basically approach that is already an enhanced approach, and we have to adapt it. So it will be several steps. It will not be ready for next winter, but we expect to have it for next year. We are starting to implement that. And besides that, we are working together with regional security coordinators who use our inputs, our outputs for their input as follow-up, but also in a coordinated adequacy. So that was for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Alban. So we will now answer your questions. So as a reminder, you can either send them in written form, or you can raise your hand. We've just pressed the little button with the hand on it, and just give your question orally. So I do not see any written question so far. So just while I see some people are writing, just while we're waiting, just to remind you that you can find the report on our website, and you can also find the data sets that were used to compile it. So just go on ENTSO-E.eu on the home page, the first item in the news section, that's the summer outlook. So now I see one written question from Henry Zeller. So Henry says, there are no risks identified for this summer, which is great. What is the probabilistic approach of ENTSO-E on a 10 years time horizon with a much higher rate of renewables and less social acceptance for keeping the conventional power plant online?
Okay, thank you for the question. So if I understand, you asked for a probabilistic 10-year approach. So is it the one we use in the midterm adequacy? It's true that we have an estimation of the renewable there, which there are higher installed capacity compared to today, and less conventional power plants depending on the situation. I don't know exactly what you mean by less social acceptance. However, I understand the goals, the target goals to reduce the carbon print, and in some countries to reduce some coal generation, for instance. This is taken into account as well. We have scenarios for that, and we make also sensitivities based on a best case scenario for instance 2025 scenario, and sensitivity based on the best data we have. We are aware that it's something that can change depending on political decision as well.
Okay, so Henry, I hope this answers your question. Otherwise, you can ask again like you did. I see another question from Nicolo, who asks, how do you define severe conditions for which export or import is needed for adequacy of synchronous peak demand time?
Okay, thank you. So for your regarding to the severe conditions, we define the severe conditions in the current outlook as a kind of 1 in 20 scenario risk, meaning we classify the temperature that we have from 34 years, and we take the 5% highest temperatures of this sample. So we do the same for the wind to have a constrained situation. So we are based on really historical values for 34 years for wind photovoltaic temperatures, and we take somehow the the 5% most constraints case. In addition to that, we have also possibility to having a higher forced outage rate than in normal conditions. For instance, for the generator units that are also, it's also available in the dataset that is published.
All right, thank you, Alban. I do not see any other question from now. Would someone like to raise their hand? Otherwise, you can always send questions later on by email. But if you want Alban to answer to you now, just raise your hand right now or chat with us. Okay, if there are no further questions, I suggest we just conclude with the key takeaways for this webinar. Just 1 second, please. We have one tiny technical issue again. Okay, so the key takeaways. So just to remind you, you can find the seasonal outlook online. So it is the unique pan-European system-wide security of supply analysis. We improve our methodologies on a constant basis, and we will continue doing it so in the future. For this summer, we expect no risk to security of supply, apart from the fact that we need to monitor the level of hydro reservoirs. But thanks to melting snow, we consider that there is actually no risk for this summer. So we will now conclude. Just to remind you, the summer outlook is just one of our publications. We have other forecasts. We have, of course, the MAF, the midterm adequacy forecast. The next edition is coming, I think, this summer in September. Alban, correct me if I'm wrong.
In early autumn.
Okay, and we will publish it for consultation in the autumn. And we also issue the theory NDP. The theory NDP 2018 will be published in early July. And the Power System 2040, which is a pan-European assessment analysis, it was released in January this year, along with the regional investment plans. I think that's it. So don't miss out the next step. The TNDP released in just a few weeks. There will be also a launch event in around mid-July. We will announce registration in the coming weeks. So if that's it, we thank you for your attention. You can ask any other question that you can think of to my colleague Lucas, and we will come back to you by email. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.